Hello, eBayers! You have landed on episode number 207 of eBay the Right Way. Today's date is March 5th, 2025. My guest today is Monica in Oklahoma. Announcements. Just one. Well, the Dark Night of the Soul is coming to an end on Saturday night. Don't forget to spring forward 1 hour. And I don't know why we can't just stay on the same time all year. Falling back an hour in November it just screws everybody up. And if you're on the East Coast, it's a real bummer. And it gets dark at like 4:30 in the afternoon. So very depressing. So thank heavens that is over. For another year. Well, really 8 months, but who's counting? Okay, now let's hear from Monica.
Hello, listeners, and welcome back. And I have Monica with us today. And how are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the podcast. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So where are you located?
I am in Tulsa, Oklahoma, northeast part of Oklahoma.
We've been having a lot of Oklahomians on lately. So great. Good for you.
There's good thrifting out here. Lots
that's
of
what I
good
hear.
stuff.
I'm gonna have to take a road trip at some point and visit all these people in Oklahoma and talk
Absolutely.
about their fantastic thrifting opportunities. So we'll get into that in just a minute. So we usually start off with the guests talking about how they found eBay and started selling.
Okay. Well, I have known about eBay for a long time. I've done it intermittently, as life called for it. I think the first time I ever did it was way back in probably, the late 90s, when we would buy and sell some Pez dispensers on eBay.
Okay. Yeah.
Long ago. But then after I had kids and I would sell maternity clothes that I was getting rid of, or some baby things just here and there. I hadn't honestly done eBay in years. As far as selling, I had bought some things I hadn't sold in a long time, until a few months ago. But I had decided, we have 3 boys and they're all in different parts of the country now. So you think when your kids leave the house that it gets cheaper, but it just gets more expensive when you're constantly traveling or bringing somebody home. So
right.
I thought, well, I'm going to open a vintage booth in one of the vintage malls. And I started collecting stuff, and I put my name on the list for a few different malls. And it's a long wait. It was probably close to 9 months before a spot opened up. And in the meantime, my house is just accumulating more and more of these finds, because I thought, well, I need inventory. They should, they could call anytime. And eventually I said, okay, I have to start getting rid of some of this inventory, because I just didn't know when a space would open. So I started listing on eBay in September of last year, and have loved it and loved it. Yeah. And I had a great time doing it. It was really, I had been hesitant at first, not knowing how much time it would take just to list and to ship and to do all the things. But I'm getting a pretty good method down, and really enjoy it. So I won't give eBay up.
You won't give it up?
No. It will stay regardless of having a booth or not. I'll continue to eBay.
So who is in your household?
So in my house, just living here, are my husband and myself.
Okay.
All 3 of our kiddos are in college or beyond.
Oh, that's tough.
Yeah.
Where do they attend college?
So we have one in Chapel Hill at UNC, we have one that just graduated and he is deciding on where to go to med school. He was
Oh,
accepted in Michigan and Virginia, so he'll be at one of those places. And then our oldest is in Germany with his wife. So
okay.
yeah, we
Right.
have them spread out everywhere.
So empty nester. Okay.
We are. We work to travel now at this point.
So there's more rooms available to fill up with eBay stuff.
Yes, there are. Yes, and
It's,
they've been used for sure.
it's funny how it takes over the house. Like, oh, I can use this for my shipping room, and I can
Oh
use
my
this for my
gosh.
office, and then this to store things, and it just keeps spreading. But
Yes,
as long as you're selling, it's not all just sitting there accumulating, then.
that's right. It's moving. It's a changing landscape.
And so your husband, does he help you with the business?
He really enjoys it now. He really does. He was hesitant at first. But a couple good sales and he was all in. But he does. He runs to the post office. He helps me with some shipping and of course he loves to go out and help me source. So he's a
Great.
big help there.
So I assume that you guys know different things.
We do. He knows definitely more of the mechanical and electronic items. But it's funny. He is learning a lot about some of the collectibles and the vintage. And I was at I had a prior engagement a couple weeks ago, and he's calling me, texting me while I'm there, and he's like, "Oh, the lady in front of me got the brass mortar and pestle. I can't believe she beat me to it." And I thought, I can't believe you know what that is. And you're texting to tell me this.
Good for him.
Right?
Yeah, it can be a blessing or a curse if your spouse is on board with this, because previous guests have said, yeah, I can't take my husband with me anymore because he just brings home all this stuff, and he'll buy every tool they have, or he buys exercise stuff or man cave stuff or whatever it is. So it's just, you have to draw the line on how much you bring home.
Yeah.
So tempting with all this good sourcing. Like, you just have to make decisions to leave things behind. Can't get it all.
He has definitely cost me more a time or two.
Well, it's not even that, it's just the stuff.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about some of these great things you've sold and where you found them in your town.
Sure. So we have, I use a couple different venues. Our town has got a few Goodwills that will have nice things sometimes. We've got a few local thrift shops that are just individual that support charities and different rescues and groups and things. And a couple of those do really well. And we have a huge market for estate sales. I mean, given any weekend, there's half a dozen estate sales to hit. They're great in finding things. You can always find something there. You just have to be careful that you have enough margin to make any profit when you go to the estate sales.
Right.
But we have a few, and typically ours will start full price, and by the last day they're either 50% off, or we have one that goes 75% off by the last day. So if you're able to go kind of scout them out first and then be back early for the discount days, you can usually find some good things. And then we have another online company that does online auctions locally. So it's an online auction, but then with local pickup. And that one I've used. I have not done like the high bid. I'm afraid of the shipping costs. I'm afraid of losing all my margin on shipping. So I have not done any online auctions that I had to have shipped to me yet.
Well, that's good that you don't have to. I've been doing that. You've probably heard me talk about it. And it's, sometimes they don't say on the shipping, they just say that's available. So it's really important to call the company. Their phone number's right there on the listing. and say,
Uh-huh.
how do you do your shipping? Because if they, you know, send everything to the UPS store and have them pack it,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I won't even do those. That's going to be way too expensive. Or if they say a third party shipper,
Mm-hmm.
no, don't do that, because that'll jack up the price. I won some things the other day. It was two different, very old stuffed animals, and
Mm-hmm.
this funky high-end hotel laundry bag. It was like a canvas bag. And
Okay.
so those were very light, and you can pack the things inside each other. So they didn't have to use packing material. And it was only $11 to ship it.
Oh, that's
And
great.
so the stuffed animals, I know I can get at least 50 for each of those.
Mm-hmm.
And the laundry bag, it just depends. Maybe 50 on that. I've sold that kind of thing before with like feed sacks, and people collect those things. So anyway, you just have to call and ask them,
So
and
you
don't,
just call them before you even bid on it and find
yeah,
out.
before I bid on it. And I was bidding on some police auctions,
Uh-huh.
um, seized, confiscated merchandise,
Sure.
and you know, before they had hundreds of items. And before I did that, I figured out, okay, I need to call them and see what the shipping is, because
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to just wait and find out. And sometimes they'll have it on the auction, sometimes they won't. So it never hurts to ask. And then I just keep a list of all the ones that are fair shippers and check back on their auctions all the time. So you kind of have to create a system for keeping track of all
Sure.
that, because there are so many companies out there. But
Mm-hmm.
I do like the ones that they'll say something like, we do all of it in-house. We charge $5 for handling fee, and we only charge you the exact shipping. So I feel like that's really good business, because more and more people are doing this now, because thrift store prices are getting more expensive, or as we
They
age,
are.
it's harder to get out, or whatever the situation is. Not everybody wants to go to the bins and fight the fight and do the do
Mm-hmm.
shopping, but yeah, just call and ask them, and you'll.
Well, that's good to know. I have been so pleasantly surprised by my online purchases. More often than not, they have been better than I expected. They've either been bigger, just nicer pieces than what I expected, or there have been kind of hidden pieces that you didn't realize what they were until you get them, and I found some value in those. So the auctions have been a lot of fun.
Well, and also you want to pick lightweight items. So
Mm-hmm.
when I'm scrolling through, I mean, I see all kinds of fantastic things, but no, that giant framed needlework, that's not going to be economical to ship. The Griswold cast iron, um, it's too heavy. It's not, it doesn't make sense to have that shipped to me. So
Sure.
you want to have a strategy of lightweight things to keep that shipping cost down. But once you start figuring out a system, it works pretty well. So, but you've got a good one locally, so maybe you don't need to look any further.
I would be open to it.
Okay.
It's
And so,
it's always fun to find new places to source, so I would definitely give it a
exactly.
try. It's a good
Yeah.
idea though to call beforehand. I'll remember that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you can email them too, but I found that the email responses are quite slow. So they're going to
Sure.
answer the phone.
Okay.
So we're going back in time. Like, actually use your phone to call someone. So you're
Well,
mostly the online auction, estate sale, and thrift stores.
yeah, well, and then when garage sale season starts, that's the best as far as finding things for great prices. And we have a nice garage sale season. They will start in probably March and typically run through about October. So we
Oh,
have
that is good.
yeah, good long season that you can go find lots of goodies.
Do you have items you specialize in? Or are you open to anything?
I am pretty open to anything. It's only been, like I said, since September, so I'm just less than 6 months really of doing this. And originally in my mind, I thought it would be all, old vintage stuff, but it's just funny because vintage is so different to different people. There are so many 20 and 30 somethings that like to thrift shop and to get bargains, and their idea of vintage is, different than my mom's idea of vintage. Um, so I just look for things that are well made and different and unique and that you just don't see everywhere. Um, and those are the ones that sell the best for me.
Well, on that note, let's talk about some things you have sold. And just a side note, thank you so much for coming on, even though you've only been at it for 6 months, because
Absolutely.
everybody has a different journey. And I know some people are intimidated by sellers that have been doing this for 20, 25 years. And you don't have to have that. You can just jump in anytime. And if you've sold one thing on eBay, you have information to share that could help somebody else. So
Definitely.
that's what this podcast is about: sellers from all walks of life, all experience levels, because you may be learning something today that somebody who's been doing this 20 years doesn't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, as far as my sales, I was telling you, my husband got on board after a few good ones. But one of my first ones, we were out going to an estate sale and a garage sale one morning, and the estate sale hadn't opened yet, but there was a garage sale in the neighborhood, so we stopped by, and they had this dirty old Coors tabletop bar sign. And there was another one that I don't remember who it was, but I asked the homeowner if they worked, and she said, "Well, I'm honestly not sure. We just pulled them out of the attic. Let me get an extension cord." And so she plugged them in, and one worked, one didn't. So I said, "Well, how much do you want for this Coors one?" And it was probably 1.5 feet tall and almost a foot wide. It was kind of pyramid shaped, um, and it lit up, and she said, "Well, how about $5?" And I said, "That sounds great." And, in my mind, I'm thinking that, anything that lights up and is beer, somebody's gonna want. So we're leaving there, and I left with it, and I'm so happy. And I look at my husband, and he doesn't look thrilled about it. And I said, "Hey, aren't you excited about this?" And he says, "Listen, you've been collecting this stuff, and I don't, the pretty stuff looks nice in the house, but don't you think you're just kind of buying junk now? Because this thing was just filthy and old, and I mean, it looked like it had been in the attic forever." And I said, "Hey, trust me on this one." So we get home, and I cleaned it up, and I listed it that day, and I sold it within 12 hours for $225. And so the next weekend he was like, "So when are we going to the garage sales again?"
Yeah, right. Okay. $5 and sold for $225 in
Yeah,
less than a week.
in like 12 hours. I mean, it was the same day.
Okay.
It was by that evening. It
Oh
was.
gosh, good pick. Way to
So
go.
he was in after that, and we went out the next weekend and went to another garage sale, and I saw, whenever you see something in a box that's unopened, I like to see what that is, because chances are it's going to sell for more money. So there was a box out, and I opened it up, and I pull it out, and it's this Snoop Dogg bobblehead. And and it was Corona, Snoop Dogg and Corona bobblehead. And I mean, it's just cheesy and funny. And I told Matt, my husband, I said, "Hey, everybody loves Snoop Dogg. We had just finished the Olympics. He had been commentating. I was like, he's so popular with every generation right now. So let's ask her how much for this." It wasn't marked. Well, it was $1.
Uh-huh.
And we sold it I think it took about 2 weeks, but sold for $86.
Oh, yeah.
Oh gosh, that's fantastic.
Right? Who would have thought? So
And it's hard to know on those bobbleheads because
yeah.
there's so many, but some of them are worth good money.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have a rule of like, every time you see a bobblehead, get it, because there's a lot of junk. But yeah,
There are. I have one still sitting in my store that I think has been sitting there as long as Snoop Dogg was, but who knows?
well,
But
now
again, for $1, it's worth a try.
what would have been great is if you also found a Martha Stewart bobblehead.
Oh my
You
gosh.
sold the two as a set with like a bag of Doritos or something.
Right? That would have been perfect.
That's the oddest combination ever, but it's smart marketing because they're exposing their
Absolutely.
audiences to each other and doubling their audiences. So you got to give Martha credit for being creative on that one.
I tell you, Martha and Snoop both are marketing geniuses.
Yeah, they are. Absolutely are. And who's the other one? Shaq.
Oh yeah.
He does insurance and pizza, and he's got all these businesses.
He does it all.
So, yeah, he does it all. That's great. Okay,
Well,
now do you put the same items in your booth that you put in on your eBay and just keep track of that?
no, that would be way too much work for me.
Okay.
Really what I find is the more expensive items sell better on eBay. And a lot of smaller items, lower value items sell better in the booth, which is great because they don't sell well on eBay because nobody wants to pay $12 and then another $8 in shipping.
Mhm.
So it's honestly been very easy. They complement each other well. I sell a lot of smalls out of the booth and then some bigger artwork or just really awkward pieces, heavy pieces in the booth, and then everything else on eBay.
Mhm. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's hard to keep track of like you sold something in the booth because that's not on site, that's not in your house. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you probably don't even know. How does that work? Do you go in like once a month and get your money and see what's sold?
Yeah, our mall works. They have an online system, so every night you can log on, and they will have posted what you sold. So you can check daily and see how your sales are, and then they pay out once a month.
And I'm guessing that's electronic, like Venmo or something.
She actually cuts a paper check when she pays us.
Okay.
Everything. I know everything
I'm not
else is.
surprised. I went to an antique mall when I first moved to South Carolina just to see like what's in here and anything flippable. And I bought a few things and they only took checks or cash.
Really?
Lady that was like 80 and she'd been running that thing her whole life and she just never changed the technology. And I said, I got my driver's license out and everything. She's like, oh, we don't need any of that. We've only had one bounce check in 40 years or something like that. So
That's great.
I was surprised they even had a check with me, but people don't carry cash really anymore.
No.
People don't, when you can Venmo and Zelle and debit card and credit card and all the things. So that's
Suzanne, my checks still have our old address on it, and we moved 7 years ago. That's how often I write a check.
Yeah, I know. I think mine's like 5 addresses ago.
Right?
That's funny.
Well, other items I've sold on eBay. I posted not long ago. We found I have to say it's the international sales that I have found the most interesting, to see the things that people have bought overseas. So far we've shipped something to Canada, to Mexico, to Finland, and now to China.
Really?
Yeah, and I find that so interesting. But we bought a cowboy hat a couple weeks ago. We were at an estate sale and we saw it was $300 at the estate sale, and it was a very nice resistol beaver felt black cowboy hat, and it was in the box, and we went back the last day when it was going to be half off to see if it was still there. Well, somebody had thought that the box was for sale, and they thought it said 30, not 300, so they had sold the box and left the hat. I know. I said, well, that takes away the whole new in box, that takes out of the value. So I asked the lady, I said, well, you already made $30 off of the box. So would you lower the price to $270 and then do half off of that since it was last day? And they agreed. So we went ahead and bought the hat at $135, and I listed it and had a ton of interest. And I assumed, I mean, we're here in Oklahoma. I figured it'd go to Oklahoma or Texas or, somewhere up the Midwest. And I had an offer for 300 that I declined, and I know, but it was so quick. It was like within a day. So I declined it, thinking that I could probably. And I actually had so many watchers. I did what you said. I had been asking 350, so I declined that offer and I raised the price to 365, and I sold it to a cowboy in Finland. Like within a few hours later. That's what I said. I said, what do they have there that they're and all I could picture was like the Highland cows, the big long-haired shaggy cows.
Okay.
I have no idea if those are in Finland, but
maybe he's gonna. Do they have the Northern Lights there? Maybe
I think so.
Watch the Northern Lights or something.
Right? It was so funny.
That's great. And so it doesn't say their address on when you go to print the label. So did you do some research to figure out where it was going?
It says somewhere on eBay after they buy it, it says it was pictured, it was, purchased through the international program, and somewhere on there it says where it's going. Okay. Even though you only ship to their hub in, in Illinois or wherever, it does say on there where it's, where the final destination is.
Okay. Well, I just usually go to the buyer's feedback page and it'll say where they are, because I like to see that too. Because I sold a dinky little dumb Lovey for like $20, and it wasn't a great brand or anything. And I'd had it for a year. I think I paid 50 cents for it, and it went to Italy. And
isn't that funny?
Who is this sophisticated person in Italy buying this dumb toy?
Right. And willing to pay the VAT taxes on it. And then
you would expect them to buy jewelry or high-end clothing or handbags or something, but no, who knows? It could have been an American living there or whatever, there's whatever for the kid, maybe the kid lost his and this was an exact duplicate. So I like to see where everything's going and try to draw conclusions like, oh, I ship a lot of this product to this country. So when you're sourcing, you're like, oh, this might go to, I don't know, this cowboy hat might go to Finland. I don't know. Maybe it's a big thing.
Who knows? Who knows?
That's great.
Well, we went to another estate sale, and we actually went because they had posted online, and they had all of these great Hazel Atlas cocktail shakers and the roly-poly glasses and just their juice glasses with all the different graphics on them. And I mean, we're talking, they had them lined up on tables in multiple rooms. I mean, dozens of different styles. And so we went to the estate sale specifically looking for the Hazel Atlas stuff. And when we were there, I went down into kind of a little sun porch, and they had set up in a corner all this beautiful glass dishes and stemware, and the bottoms were, clear crystal, but it was a real light yellow, beautiful. And I did a quick Google lens on it, and it came up as a Fostoria pattern. And I asked one of the ladies working there, I said, do you know anything about this? Is this Fostoria? Because they had the whole thing priced at $100 for 75 pieces, and it was 25% off day. And she said, I just don't know. And I said, well, okay. I mean, and at my Google lens, I was pretty sure that's what it was. So we purchased it and brought it home and did a little more research on it. And it's been incredibly valuable. I sold 4 glasses, just 4 pieces of stemware for $86. to one person. So that paid for the whole lot. And then I had another lady that messaged me and asked if she bought multiples, if I would do any kind of discount. And I said, sure, let me know how, what you're looking at buying, and we'll go from there. And she wanted 8 pieces of the stemware. And so I don't remember, I gave her 10 or 15% off. But anyway, it came up to $165 for those 8 pieces of stemware. And here we basically paid $1 a piece. So, but that one went to China, those 8 pieces. And I had no idea when I was messaging back and forth with her that, that's where she was. But after she made the purchase, it came through, this is an international sale, and the final destination was China.
Good for you.
I know. I find that so interesting that somebody looks all the way to Tulsa, Oklahoma to find something halfway across the world.
Yeah, and you went to some estate sale of some person who passed away, and that was obviously a glass hoarder,
right?
Picked out some good pieces, and it's just this whole rehoming process that we love as resellers. I think just you found this over here, and then you put it over there, and that person's happy.
But it's funny, I wouldn't have even thought about buying a set of dishes. That was never on my radar because I never, it just wasn't something I knew about. And you had a guest on that talked about selling to replacements and buying all kinds of sets of china and different things. And so I look a little bit now and try to recognize some of the bigger, more expensive names or patterns. And I haven't bought any other big sets besides this one, but it wasn't long after I had listened to that podcast that I thought, well, I should probably check out some of these and see if anything's worth anything. And sure enough, it was worth it.
Very good. Very good. And I don't know if you saw my post about the lotion I sent to New Zealand and the lady wanted to return it. But this is for the listeners, is that anything that's sold through the eBay Standard International program, if they want to return it, you just get your money back.
Yeah.
I mean, because they don't do returns through that system. So because I think it was $150 sale, and I was like, I'd never got an international request for return. It was something about it was a different version of the lotion that it's made differently now. You know how they change the packaging in the bottle and all that stuff. But I was like, no, come on. And
right.
then it's not going to be new in the box anymore because she's opened it. And that was just a heartbreaker. But it was verified through our wonderful people in the group that know so much. You just get your money back if it doesn't get returned. I mean, they get their money back. It does not affect the seller in any way if you get a request for return through that program.
Right.
So I didn't realize that because I've never been in that situation. So once it's out of your hands, in their hands, eBay is responsible for damage, loss, and if they want to return it, they just refund the buyer if they're not happy, and nobody's out. Nobody's out. They cover it. So much better than the days which you weren't on eBay, but just either international shipping where you just took the responsibility yourself, or then there was the global shipping program, and then they made it even better with the one they have now.
Yeah, this is all 4 things that we have sold out of the country have been $100 or more. So knowing that once you've shipped it off to Illinois or wherever eBay's hub is that you're shipping to, that it's a done deal it's great because that's a big sale.
Yeah. And you're covered. You don't have to worry about anything.
No worries.
Don't have to file a claim. Don't have to do any of that. So, while that did give me a heart attack when I saw that she wanted to return it.
Sure.
I did learn that you never have to worry about it. That was a good takeaway from that. It was first thing in the morning. I was like, oh, come on, don't ruin my day.
Sure.
Have you had any returns yet?
Just a handful, very few. And one of them was definitely a lesson. I had one, I had sent out a jacket, a London fog trench coat kind of jacket that went at Christmas. And the buyer ordered it probably 2.5 weeks before Christmas. So, I mean, they were cutting it pretty close, but I have 2 shippings listed, so they can do Ground Advantage. They can do priority if they want to upgrade something, and they chose Ground Advantage. Well, when it didn't show up in a week, they wanted a refund, and I told them, you'll have to, it's tracking. So, but then the tracking, of course, stopped. In the post office when there's just no updates, but they make you wait until at least 15 days before the post office will track it. So anyway, eventually it did deliver, and I told the buyer, that they were welcome to return it. And they did, and they waited about 3 weeks before they ever shipped it back to me. And when I got it back, I opened it, and it was a, gray London fog trench coat. And I thought, man, this looks a little bit, I think they wore it for last month and have now sent it back to me. But whatever, I got it back. I didn't see any holes or anything in it. So I went ahead and hit refund on their money, and I was going to relist the item. And when I went to relist, I noticed my pictures that the lining was different, that they had actually sent me a different coat back.
Switcheroo.
And I contacted eBay because the money came out of my weekly funds. I have eBay cash me out weekly. So they took the refund out of my balance of funds. And so I contacted eBay to report that it was I didn't receive my item back, and I had the pictures, and I sent it to him, and I said, so I'd like you to put those funds back in my account since, this is a fraudulent buyer. And so lesson learned, eBay will not do that. If you have willingly of your own accord given the refund, then they will not undo that. So always be 100% sure before you give that refund that you've checked your item
before you do anything. Right.
Yep. And I had checked for damages, but I just didn't realize it had been 2 months since I had seen, this coat that I picked up at Goodwill, and I just didn't realize that the lining was different. So always really be thorough about that, because they said, sorry,
that's kind of a rare event, though. I've been selling clothing since 2003, and I don't get many returns. People think, oh, I'm not going to sell clothing because you get so many, and it's maybe one a month.
Yeah.
And half the time they request it and they don't even send it back. More than half. And I got a return the other day. It was a $10 tennis skirt. Okay. She paid $7 to have it shipped to her in Guam.
Oh my gosh.
Is a U.S. territory, protectorate, whatever it's called. And it's within the USPS. I looked up on the map where it is, because I thought it was in the Caribbean. No, it's over by New Zealand. I'm like, so she sent it all the way back from there. Another $7. So she spent $14 for nothing. And this always puzzles me when people do that, when they spend more on the shipping both ways than the item.
Right.
They have nothing to show for it. And either they can't do math, or they just don't care. They just,
I don't know which.
And it's like, if it was me, I would resell it. That's what I do with things I order online.
Sure.
I just resell it and get more than I paid for it. Or give it to a friend or something, just that whole, I don't understand that whole paying for shipping and you get nothing.
I don't understand it either. Well, I've been lucky. I do some clothes. I think I've had 2 other requests for things not fitting, and one they never sent back, and one she sent back right away, and it was, easy peasy. I relisted it, and I'm sure it'll sell again.
Yeah, and most of the time it's just it didn't fit.
Yeah,
that's completely reasonable with buying online, because everything runs differently, even if the measurements are there. Well, how stretchy is the material? Does it stretch at all? Does it stretch too much? And I would never expect anybody to buy clothing online and not have an option to return it, because I wouldn't want that. So, but it's the whole taking action to return it part where we lose them, because most of the people are, oh, I love this so much. It's so beautiful. I really wanted to wear it to such and such, but it just doesn't fit. It's like, what's wrong with it? No problem. And really, 3 out of 4 times, you just never hear from them again. They open the return and waiting for buyer to ship item, and then it just times out, and the time's up and they can't send it back.
Right. Yep. Clothes they have been easy. They're so easy to ship. I was hesitant about them at first because there are so many different brands, and just knowing what is saturated in the market, because there's a lot of things. I mean, I feel like Under Armour and some of those might be North Face or good brands, but the market is so saturated that they don't sell very quickly.
Right.
But that's where watching some YouTube videos or listening to the podcast, that's where you can really learn a lot from other resellers. And that's where I learned. I think they were both off of some of your podcasts, somebody talking about St. John's, and I found a St. John's sport dress at an estate sale with just all the others. So it was $5 or less. That I turned around and sold for 70. And then just the Chico's Travelers. So knowing, like, even within Chico's, like what specifically to look for, not necessarily just Chico's, but the Travelers are what sell well. And
yeah, Travelers. And if it's any kind of bohemian look, fringe, sequins, the cream of the crop of Chico's, not just a single piece you find. The basic pieces are good, but you're going to get the most for the sheer or the boho tops, or things that could be worn as a swimsuit cover up, looking glamorous by the pool, dripping in gold jewelry, drinking cocktails, that kind of stuff, cruising wear, that kind
right.
of yeah, it still can be a good flip. You just have to pick the right pieces.
Well, I like clothing. I'm definitely learning more and more about what brands sell, brands that I'm not necessarily familiar with, but I love having access to all the other resellers, because there is so much to learn. But you can learn so much from other people. You don't have to do it all on your own.
Right. Everybody's willing to share, because it's just, you can't be everywhere at the same time to get all this stuff.
No.
So if, you get back what you put out there, if you're willing to share what others will be willing to share with you, and everybody can just be smarter, and we're just never going to run out of stuff to sell.
No, isn't that the truth?
Do you have any other sales you want to talk about?
Well, other things that have done really well. We went to, a couple of things have been things you don't necessarily know what they are, but it's as much an art as a science, I think. Just going out and seeing things, feeling them, and feeling, weight and quality, and being able to see when things are well made. I've stumbled across things, and my husband and I were at an estate sale, and I've learned to look on the mantles, because people put a lot of their prized items on a mantle. So you may not know what it is, but there's a good chance if they gave it that front and center billing that there may be some value up there. So there were 2 brass, well, they just had potpourri in them. They looked like kind of like little urns full of potpourri. And anyway, what's funny, we went the first day and they were each, I think, $30. And I didn't want to pay that much for them. And I mean, looking back, they were worth it at $30, but I thought, oh no. And we just happened to go by there again on the last day when they were 75% off, and they were still there. So we paid, $7.50 or so for each one of them. And in fact, I think I have one. I picked one. I don't know if you can see a little.
Yeah.
They're just kind of a little Art Deco urn,
Is
and
that
they're
made of like brass
it
or
is. It's a heavy brass, so I don't know why I didn't buy it the first day.
so for the listeners, she's showing maybe a 6-inch tall brass, looks like a little urn, like
It
maybe
does.
somebody's ashes in it or whatever.
That's what,
Did you check and see if there are any in there?
is somebody's dog in this thing?
I know. You bought that plus the dog inside.
But it's got a great little, Art Deco design on it. And so on the bottom, it was stamped Vanteens. And we looked it up, and it's a French company. And these were made in the 1920s.
Oh.
And I put it on eBay and sold it, I mean, really quickly for $156.
Mhm.
And I look back, I wasn't willing to pay, I think it was 25% off when we saw it. So I wasn't willing to pay the, $20 or something a piece, and here they're worth $150 that I sold it for.
So you had
So it was a great flip for $5, but it was another lesson in, you know what, if it's on that mantle, maybe do a little more research and pay attention. There's probably value there.
and how many of them did you buy?
Bought 2 of them.
Okay, so you just have that one left.
Yep, I haven't listed it yet. I'm kind of enjoying it before I list it.
Okay. Oh, yeah, we all do that.
Yeah.
What is that thing behind you, that blue thing with the glass on top of it?
This thing?
Yeah, that's an interesting piece.
So I was at another, actually garage sale, and it was 2 sisters, and they had owned an estate sale company. And I guess sometimes when estate sales are over, people just don't want what they have. So the estate sale company will keep things. So they had just a huge garage sale, tables and tables with all kinds of great things. We picked up a ton. But I saw this glass piece, and it looks, it's tall, and it looks like a big flower. And I did some research. It was actually missing. This is the perfume rod. It's a perfume holder.
Oh, okay.
So I guess, what is this? Is it a stamen on a flower?
I would think so, yeah.
Yeah. So that glass stamen was missing. And when I did some research, it signed on the bottom. I found the person that made it, and they're out of it. Their art studio is in Missouri. So I called them and I told them I had this piece, but I would like to buy the perfume rod that went in it, the stamen to the flower. And they were so nice. They said, well, we custom make those to fit in each glass because each bottle is, hand blown glass. And so they said, just ship it back to us. And if you'll pay the cost of shipping to and from us, we'll just make one to fit in it, and you can just have it.
Oh, wow.
I know, they were so friendly and nice. And they, so they made, but isn't it beautiful? It's just a hand blown glass perfume jar bottle.
Is that like an orchid?
Or a lily? I mean, I don't know
or a lily, right? So what she's holding is beautiful glass, maybe 12 inches tall, with this giant lily bloom on top, and it's just beautiful.
Yeah.
That's me always looking at the background, so.
I know, I love it. It's really pretty. I have not listed it yet. I mean, it's worth 100 or more, but it's just so pretty. I've enjoyed it. So, but it's fun to find the unique things. Around here, we have a ton of Frankoma pottery, and different regions I know have things that they see more and more of, and you can get into the habit of buying everything you see that's Frankoma because it's collectible. But
can you spell that?
Frankoma.
Frankoma. Okay.
Okay. But I think you do better when you look for unusual pieces and pieces that are different. So rather than just a coffee cup, you want to buy the coffee cups that are shaped like a boot or have a face on them, or something different.
Yeah, the less there is of something, the more it's going to be worth. So you want to look for the odd, the unusual, the downright weird stuff.
Absolutely, those are the things that sell. The more unique, the better.
That's right.
So I've done well. I've sold Frankoma, but it's been more of the unusual pieces. And I've done pottery. I've learned, at first I was really afraid to list big items, especially big fragile items. But I recently went to an estate sale, and again, on the day that everything was 75% off, I picked up a Shawnee Pottery Smiley Pig cookie jar.
Yes, I think you posted that on the group, didn't you?
I did, and he was big, and he's in 2 pieces. And his head has actually had a slot in the top where it's a bank. So
Okay.
the head is hollow on top of being big, and 2 pieces of pottery. And I mean, it's intimidating to ship those, but I know one of your listeners had talked about just packing each piece in individual boxes and then kind of floating those boxes in even another bigger box. And that's what I did. And I've shipped quite a few breakable things now. I would say probably half of what I ship really is breakable. And you just don't have to be afraid of it. Just make sure when you're listing your item, you're taking into consideration that you're going to be at least doubling its size with your box so that you
Right.
cover your shipping.
Now, are you full-time eBay?
No, I'm an RN full-time, and I do this on the side.
Really? Okay.
Yep.
And so
Yep.
are you in a hospital, doctor's office?
In a surgical hospital. So I have a set Monday through Thursday 4-10 schedule.
Okay.
So I have my long weekends to do all of my eBay.
Yeah, this business is very appealing to nurses.
It is. Well, and I did nursing as a second career. So for almost 20 years, I had been a GM of a wholesale company and run a warehouse and a service center. So this is fun for me to get back to the business side of things and the warehousing and shipping.
But it's a break from healthcare, because I can imagine that gets stressful, and sometimes it's not fun,
Yeah, no, it's a great break from that job. It's a completely different and it's a great break.
Yeah, well, that's great. I'm glad to see you've kind of got everything balanced, with your family life, your regular job, I call it.
Right.
And then your side hustle with eBay and your antique booth. So you're just
it definitely feels the time. So I can't dwell on being an empty nester, because that's a tough transition.
You're right. It is. And I'm kind of the same way I like to be busy.
I do too.
I just do busy work. I like to be busy and do interesting things and be, because when you sit around without much to do and all these thoughts in your head, it can be depressing and isolating. But being involved in, I don't know, sorting out dollhouse furniture, which I'm going to later today. I keep putting it off, and I bought this big lot of Fisher Price Loving Family dollhouse furniture, and it's in like an IKEA bag. It's a lot.
Oh, that is a lot.
I keep pushing it to the side, and I'm like, no, today I'm going to tackle that. So I think I'm just going to put it all together in one lot. That's what I can't decide. Do I do it by room? Do I do it by, make different little sets? That's what I've seen is different little scenes, the couch and the TV and the coffee table and the dog and stuff like that. But anyway, doing different projects keeps your mind
fun.
It's a good thing. Yeah.
Now, have you tried in-person auctions, like going to an auction house for a live auction?
I have some around me, and I've been hitting on some local eBay friends, like, let's go do this. And I can't get anybody recruited. They're Friday nights, so that's kind of a problem for some people. So I'd love to try it. I just haven't had the opportunity. Have you done any of that?
I haven't, but it's on my list I think it would be fun to go experience it and just see what kind of things there are to buy at those. Because it looks like they have from furniture to smalls and everything in between. So I think it would be fun.
What you can get for how little.
Right. Well,
who is it? Jeremy talked about doing that, not doing Goodwill anymore. And he's going to these live auctions, and he'll fill up his vehicle. So I don't know if I'm ready for that. I don't know if I control myself.
Right. I might get in over my head real quick.
I know. Like, oh, now I got all this stuff. What am I going to do with it? Okay. Well, it has been a pleasure to talk with you, and you're so energetic. And for a newbie, you know a lot. So thank you
Well,
for sharing everything. Do you have any final words for the listeners?
I would say just go for it. You don't have to know everything to get started. I think the one thing I would do getting started is make sure that you either have a software system or a plan for keeping track of your purchases. I listened to another YouTuber, Justin Resells, and he has a Flipwise is his software that I use, but it integrates with eBay and it's great. So if I make a sale, it automatically, or when I make a listing, it will automatically track it. And I just put in my shipping weights or my cost to buy. And it made taxes so easy because I just go hit a button and run a report. And otherwise, I would never remember what I paid for something, 3 months ago when it,
Right. Who does? Yeah.
never,
I used to
never.
enter every single item when I would get home from thrifting and stuff. And now I just total divided by the number of things I bought, and that's the cost. Because
That's much
too much
easier.
bookkeeping. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
It's not an income producing activity, bookkeeping.
No, it's not.
But if you can cut it down and make it more time efficient, then you can use that time for finding more items and listing that pile of stuff.
Absolutely. And I would do it like when you come home from thrifting, put in what you bought. Just keep up with it daily, and it's so much easier. You just have to assume you're going to be successful, so you'll need to have these numbers in place and go into it with that positive mindset.
Well, but there's always some waste. I don't care
sure.
where you buy stuff, and then you keep track of that, because if you're going to redonate the waste, that can be a tax deduction. So you want to keep track of it no matter what. So anyway, well, what's on your agenda today?
Today, I think I will probably check out an estate seller too. I've got a haircut coming up first, though. Time to fix those gray roots.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, we're not going to talk about that.
Right.
So you're going to estate sale and just have some you time.
That's right.
Okay, well, thanks again for coming on, and we're going to look for more sales from you on the group.
Suzanne, thanks for having me. That was a lot of fun.
Okay, have a great day.
You too.
Bye.
Next week, my guest is Lori, who has been selling on eBay for over 20 years. Thanks for spending the last hour with us, and as the late, great Casey Kasem used to say, keep your feet on the ground and keep reaching for the stars. Happy selling, everybody. Bye.